very strict 5-minute rule. Secretary, I know you have a plane to catch to go to the Middle East. Chair recognizes Mr. Kean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank you for your leadership in this Congress as well as of this committee. Mr. Secretary, you are here with us today to discuss the Biden administration's failure in the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan in August of 2021 and your role in the sad chapter that our country witnessed. During President Biden's time in office and your tenure as Secretary of State, our country has seen many international crises that have become more inflamed. This administration has slow-walked critical arms and capabilities to Ukraine and has prolonged this war into what will be soon its third year. This administration has also intentionally delayed vital assistance to Israel, and that has eroded confidence around the world about American continued support for our strongest ally in the Middle East. We need to, and in addition, you and your president lack of accountability and ownership for the withdrawal from Afghanistan is inexcusable. Mr. Secretary, why did you believe that the Taliban would negotiate with the Afghan government despite President Biden's unconditional surrender on April 14, 2021?
As I said earlier, the Taliban had made commitments under Doha. We wanted to see them fulfill those commitments, including negotiating with the government on a transition. We made every effort diplomatically throughout that period to hold them to that, but it became clear that they wouldn't. And it also became clear that when the deadline expired, the deadline negotiated by the previous administration, they would go back to attacking our forces, attacking our partners, attacking the cities. It would have required us to send tens of thousands of Americans back to Afghanistan. That's not a decision the president is prepared to make.
During that entire time, what leverage did the United States have over the Taliban once President Biden announced that he would abandon our allies, no matter what the Taliban's violations of the Doha Agreement would be?
Again, we had a deadline negotiated by the previous administration, and the choice was not between the status quo and ending the war. The choice was between ending the war and escalating it, because, again, they would have gone back to attacking us. We had only 2,500 forces in Afghanistan. At that point, we would have had to have reinforced them dramatically had the Taliban gone back to directly attacking our forces, directly attacking our partners, going into Afghanistan cities. That was the choice before the president.
Do you agree that your power-sharing agreement further destabilized and delegitimized the Afghan government?
I'm sorry, Congressman, can you repeat that? The power-sharing agreement?
Do you agree that your power-sharing agreement further destabilized and delegitimized the Afghan government?
There wasn't a power-sharing agreement. It was the intent of the Doha Agreement that the Taliban negotiate with the government a ceasefire and a political transition, something that they didn't do. But that was what was in the Doha Agreement. That was the objective.
It was clear that
didn't happen.
That the Taliban was going to violate, and they did. On May 8th, 2021, your State Department held a rehearsal of concept drill with the Defense Department to plan for the withdrawal from Afghanistan. And during that meeting, the military warned against keeping Embassy Kabul open. Your deputy, Brian McKean, responded, quote, "We at the State Department have a much higher risk tolerance than you guys." Mr. Secretary, it was you who tasked Mr. McKean with purportedly leading the State Department's neo-planning. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, again, I had trouble hearing that. Please repeat that.
It was during this meeting where you were warned not to keep Embassy Kabul open. Your deputy, Brian McKean, responded, quote, "We at the State Department have a much higher risk tolerance than you guys." Mr. Secretary, it's you who tasked Mr. McKean with purportedly leading the State Department's neo-planning. Is that correct? And do you agree with his assessment?
I can't speak to that conversation or to that meeting. What I can speak to is the fact that starting in April, we worked on every scenario with our colleagues from DOD. We did multiple exercises. We planned out what we would need to do, including in the event of a NEO. And as I said before, the decision to actually initiate the NEO is a collective decision made through the interagency process by all of the cabinet level members and ultimately by the president. The State Department technically initiates it, and it was on August 14th that everyone agreed that we should initiate the NEO. And for reasons that we've discussed before, we didn't want to precipitate a panic. No one believed that the government and military would collapse. We We wanted to sustain our diplomatic efforts
you-
in Afghanistan.
Respectfully, your decision to keep U.S. Embassy Kabul open against military advice put people's lives at risk, and people were killed. And I want to also express my sympathy.
It was a collective
I want to
Congressman, a
express
collective
my
decision of the
sympathy
administration.
to the families of the 13 service members who were killed at Abbey Gate, who I know many of the Gold Star families are here today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back my time.
Gentleman yields. Chair recognizes Mr. Almo.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I certainly want to thank you for your leadership as I've started my time in Congress on this committee, and I certainly look forward to working with you in other ways in the future.